Hello, I'm Kenny from Albot here today, once again at Strangel, to talk to you about killing it when it comes to Zoom. If you're anything like me, you've probably been on a lot of Zoom calls recently. And if you're a cinematographer like me, you're sitting on a bunch of gear, Why not use that gear to stunt on the haters? So I'm going to take you through how to get the best look and sound out of Zoom. And then after, we're going to talk about more professional applications, on-set applications for live streaming that I think may be the wave of the future. For instance, if a producer doesn't want to fly from New York to LA just to see a one-day shoot, maybe we can show them everything just with this. So we'll get to that later with Josh. But for now, how do you look your best? As a cinematographer or any type of filmmaker, we know that showing and not telling is the move. So I'm going to show you and tell you how to do the move. So I'm assuming you already have gear, camera, lights, audio. It doesn't need to be a C500 or a Skype panel or anything like that, but just the camera has to have HDMI out and preferably XLRs. The only thing you're going to need to add to your kit is one of these. Now, this is a Camlink 4K, a Camlink 4K. This is just an HDMI to USB adapter. You do not need a Camlink. I personally use, it's like this Chinesium adapter I got online. Just look up on your favorite web store, HDMI to USB adapter, and it kind of looks like this. They're under a bunch of different brand names. But if you check the ratings, you'll see like a bunch of people saying they work. The one I got only outputs 1080, but that's okay because Zoom does not need a 4K signal. It'll take in 1080, 4K, but it won't kick out 4K. Again, that's fine, especially for like streaming. Completely unnecessary. Twitch is in 720 unless you're a partner, and then it's 1080. No one's internet connection is live streaming a 4K signal. Although this Camlink does output a 4K signal, which I think is more for going from a streaming box or like a gaming box into a streaming computer, something like that. Anyway, that's not the point. You get one of these, right? The one I said on the internet, on the Jungle website is $30. I think this is more like $250, and these are kind of hard to find. Slightly nicer though. And so you're just gonna plug that in and then plug this into your computer. Now, you're gonna want a computer that is better than a MacBook Air. I'm sorry, tried this with MacBook Airs before, doesn't work. Use a nice like gaming laptop or something, or I'm not a Mac person, but I really have to give credit where credit's due. These Mac Minis are dope, these M1 Mac Minis. So if you're a little strapped for cash, looking for a new computer, these are great, and it also has an Ethernet port, which you're really gonna need. So you plug this into your camera of choice through the HDMI, plug that in your computer, and you're basically done. The other thing you're gonna want to do is plug in your favorite audio solution into the XLR port of choice. So let's say input 1. Right now I've got a wireless lav. That would work great at home with my C500 Mark II as my webcam. I use a boom mic. And so when you plug that into your computer, the Zoom or whatever you're using, Skype, will recognize it as a webcam. And then so you just set, USB device or Camlink or whatever it is, as video and audio, and you're good to go. There are some settings you'll need to toggle inside of Zoom. For the image, you're going to want to go to video and then select use HD video, which actually, if you're using anything, even the laptop camera, use HD video sends a higher bitrate signal, not like a 1080 signal. So always use that if your internet connection can handle it. And then mess with the ratio, because I've noticed when you plug an external camera in, it squishes it for some reason. Then in audio, because Zoom is built in such a way where it has a bunch of automatic features, right, to try to make anything look as good and sound as good as possible. But we're cinematographers, we're professional filmmakers, we know better than Zoom. So under audio, you're gonna want to toggle the setting that allows for use original audio, which will show up as a button above your image in the Zoom call. And you click that and it sends an unadulterated signal through Zoom to the person on the other end of the line. So if you've got a lav like this, this is what you could get. You could be on the other end of Zoom right now looking at me. I started doing a podcast recently with Pro Video Coalition called Frame and Reference. Give that a look up. And this is what I do. I interview other DPs and we, shoot the breeze about cinematography and, just kind of, I figured it'd be interesting to just kind of have an unstructured conversation with other cinematographers, see what comes up for the first half. For the second half, we talk about the project that they're there to promote because that's why the PR companies call you. You don't get DPs on a podcast usually without them talking about a project. So, plug aside, this is the type of setup that I use almost exactly. And while DPs are really impressed with it, I will say that whenever I've gotten on a call with a business person or someone who's maybe a director that's about to hire me for a shoot, when they see the quality right off the bat, right, it instills in them some confidence that I know what I'm doing because no one has ever seen a Zoom call look like this, right? So that's what we're aiming for here. Another thing is the monitoring channels in your camera. This might be different for various cameras, but for the Canon, I just make sure that the monitor is set to left and right channel is input 1, so that whatever's happening through the tubes, the viewer is not listening to me in one ear or whatever. And that's another thing. Always wear headphones. You're going to have to wear headphones. Their voice should not be in your space. It should only be in your ears. And that is regardless of what you're doing. Even if you just have the laptop, just wear the headphones, wear the headphones, wear the headphones. Another thing you can do is, like I said, once you've got the little adapter and the settings are right in Zoom and you've got the audio ready to go, you're done. That's all you need. And the lighting, obviously. Our lighting is going to be most important. But you can also use a program called OBS, Open Broadcast Software. It's free. And you can do all kinds of stuff. You can do overlays, you can do multiple cameras and switch between them. But you can also set multiple audio inputs if you need. But what I would do is under the audio input for the camera, I would then add some filters. So compression, EQ, noise reduction, whatever you want. I personally use the isotope plugins, the denoiser, Nectar, I think, or Neutron, Nectar, EQ. I know there's one that sounds really good on my voice. And that just adds just that little bit of extra oomph to the Zoom call. Now, if you're not a techie or you don't need all that extra stuff, you can get an ATEM Mini Pro. And this does the exact same thing that OBS does, but it's just way more easy to use. You also get some hardware and a few extra features that just make everything simple. So you've got 4 HDMI inputs, 2 3.5 millimeter microphone jacks if you need them, and you can toggle between them. You can do dips and mixes and all kinds of things. The software on here allows you to do EQs on the audio, color correction, honestly, which is crazy. All kinds of stuff. You can pipe in other media if you're doing a presentation, and all that can go from this into Zoom. Same thing with OBS. It all can go into Zoom or your streaming thing of choice or whatever. And actually, this and OBS are both built to stream. So there's actually a stream button right there. So that's all you really need to do. As a recap, use the cinema stuff you have already, set up an interview style shot with yourself, and then just get this little adapter, plug it into your technologically advanced, computer, and then you should be good to go. But there are more professional applications than that we can talk about. So we're going to bring in Josh and talk about it. Josh, hello.
Hello, Kenny. Thank you for having me virtually to your video. I appreciate it. I'm home. I'm safely wrapped in bubble wrap. I'm postmating everything. If anyone comes within 10 feet of the door, I shoot them with a paintball gun. I'm hoping this won't last much longer.
That's good. How does my stream look? Does it look pretty decent?
It looks awesome. It looks way better than mine, which is sort of the point. Yeah.
So I don't know if you know this, but the last time we did a video, you just locked me in the stage. So I've just been here.
Interesting. Oh, I see you've made yourself at home. You're using all the gear and yeah.
Yeah, it's it's kind of been wild. Like some people have had to rent stuff, but when they're not, I just figure there's also a mini
Great.
fridge I found, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, hopefully there's been enough supplies to keep you alive. Leftover crafty, all that stuff.
Red Bull goes a long way, Sugar, it's like those the elves from Fat Man, sugar, carbs, minimal hydration, the yellow in the skin.
How was Fat Man? Did you enjoy it?
It was good. Yeah, my friend Johnny Durango. Oh, you know Johnny Durango.
Oh, he's a
I
mutual
interviewed him
friend of
for the
ours.
first
Yeah,
episode of the podcast. He shot it.
he would go on your podcast.
Yeah. But did you know he
No,
shot it?
I was proud of him because we were driving along through the barren wasteland that is the 2020 movie market, and we passed a marquee, and it said like Tenet, some other giant movie, and Fat Man, and I was like, well done.
Hey.
You're among great company there, Johnny. Good job. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, I'm doing this video about live streaming. Would you be down to come down to the stage and two things? One, discuss like professional live streaming applications while, masked up and distance. And two, give me the key so I can leave.
I don't know. I'm kind of stuck here. We may have to do this over Zoom, like everything else in our world. Yeah. I don't know if I can really, don't know if I can do it. Sorry.
All right.
But I'll tell you what, next time I'm around, I'll let you out of the stage.
Okay. That's
right.
fair. So in that case, I've explained how everyone, all you really need is that one little cam link adapter. But we were talking before, what are some other ways that someone could use this setup in a more professional setting? How could this enhance a shoot, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. The key is, you have a lot of this great gear, and a lot of what Zoom is set up to do is to work well on, shitty gear in not perfect lighting conditions without a great mic. So obviously, I think you've gone over the way to like apply your professional gear that you have as an industry professional to making your Zoom calls better. So beyond that, though, we can start adding functionality that producers can use, or that you can use to like help produce your stuff remotely. Let's say. So the first request that we started getting, as people started to move to more remote production, was producers being able to sort of produce remotely. And I mean, just a real basic form of that is using something like the Cam Link, or if you have multiple cameras, using some kind of a switcher to offer a multi-view or single view feed from the camera to a producer that can zoom into the meeting. And we've had productions set up a Zoom when once they're ready and rolling, and just leave it open for 6 hours, 8 hours, and have production or producers just be kind of able to pop in and see what's going on out of the main feed of the cameras. And so that's one simple and easy way you can do that.
And you can do that with any camera. Like that could be a camcorder, that could be anything. It doesn't need to be special.
Absolutely, yeah. And then the next step is adding in the ability for that producer to communicate back, and that's sort of the two-way nature of Zoom makes that easy, because there's lots of remote monitoring systems that are set up. There are setups you can use. Teradeks have a bunch of like proprietary options that can be, encoded and more secure and all that kind of thing. But if you really just want like a basic two-way, send a video signal, let somebody in New York or LA or wherever you're not shooting, you can set that up via Zoom. It's very simple. The next step is figuring out how you want that particular remote producer to be able to interact with the people on set. So obviously, something like the Mac Mini has, audio outputs, so you can set that up so that they can go to, they can either, go to some speakers so that they can interact with talent, potentially even like remote interviews, or you can have them sort of set up with a liaison on set that they're communicating with, and then that person is relaying their questions or concerns or comments to the appropriate people on set. It's really just about setting up a protocol for it to everything to flow smoothly. Remote producing isn't going anywhere. It's I think what people have found is it's incredibly convenient and efficient to be able to do a lot of this stuff. And so I think what we'll see over the next few years is the remote portion of it becoming just something that people are, you're expected to be able to have that capability, or at least some of those capabilities, on set. And it's something that would, obviously an AC doesn't necessarily just need to become a technical director for a Zoom live switch. It's something that, but it is something that if the production is willing to put the time and effort into figuring it out ahead of time, it can add a lot of functionality to the set. It can also be a real mess if you don't put your time and put some time and effort into figuring out ahead of time. So that's definitely something to watch out for.
Totally. And the COVID protocol officer became a new job. Like there very well might be a Zoom liaison as an additional job for the nerd in your life. But even so, like if you don't have a huge budget, just even having the setup, like I said, like if you're the producer and you phone in to talk to me about how the shoot's going and you see this, there is going to be a level of reassurance that this is a professional thing and everything's moving smoothly, and there's part of juggling producers is making sure they don't freak out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've seen some really interesting and creative ways of doing it. People may have heard of the Interrotron, which is Errol Morris's sort of electronic remote interviewing device that allows him to sort of interview people via where they're looking at his face, and then the camera is shooting through that image of his face. So they got these really nice, engaged, dead-on camera interviews. There's a way to set that up remotely, completely remotely from an entirely different city using a teleprompter and a video screen, and that could be something that if you want to add that. That now we're getting into the realm of completely remote directing, and which was something that became a necessity during the pandemic, but I don't think is going away, considering what a powerful tool it can be when it's set up correctly. And the other thing I would point out is when you're planning this all out, a lot of this is modular. Adding a professional mic to your Zoom setup is one step. Being able to do a video feed from a professional camera, or to provide the video feed from your A camera on the shoot to your Zoom is another step. Adding multiple cameras in using a switcher is another step beyond that. Adding a teleprompter setup so that remote directors and producers can engage in a more seamless fashion with the interview talent. There's another step beyond that, and it's something that once you get a handle on the tech on what's possible and you've done it a few times, it's something that you can work through with production, or as you're planning your own shoot, to figure out, okay, well, here's the levels that I want to hit, here's the most efficient way to do it, and here's the gear that I'm going to need to do it.
Yeah, and I mean too, it like you said, it kind of depends on what your aim is. If you're just having a conversation, you can stick to just using the camera and a nice mic. But if it's a production, if you're doing a podcast like I was talking about, or you're the news, like the teleprompter thing you're talking about, you didn't quite hit on it, but instead of having words go up there, you slide like an iPad in there, set up Zoom, and then the person in front of the camera can see the other person from Zoom in the teleprompter, just using the technology in a slightly different way.
I think we've covered a lot of stuff. I just want to put a little pitch in, for Stray Angel. We are happy to walk you through whatever you're trying to set up and try to figure out the best thing for you, as any good rental house is willing to do. A lot of this stuff is, more and more available than it was before, and I think is going to become more and more full featured. The ATEM is sort of a good middle ground in that it is not super complicated, not super expensive, but it does a lot. But it does 90% of what you're going to want to do. So if you have any questions, if you have a particular use that you're trying to set up, please feel free to shoot us an email at rentals@StrayAngel or give us a call, and we'll do our best to sort of walk you through the way that we would recommend you set it up. It's important to kind of look at your different options. When we are purchasing equipment for offering additional live streaming and Zooming options, we try to keep everything modular, which is why we chose the Mac Mini. The Mac Mini has a lot of ins and outs. It can be connected via hardwire to Ethernet, which is important. It's got HDMI, a solid HDMI in and out, but it does not have a built-in camera. It doesn't have a built-in keyboard. It doesn't have a built-in monitor. You got to figure out, adding those things. And part of the reason that it works well as a rental item is that it can be then connected to whatever you want to do. If you want a full-on professional 17-inch reference monitor to connect your computer to, you can do that, or you can add it to you can connect it to like a 55-inch TV if you want your talent to be able to see the Zoom from all the way across the room. There's lots of options there.
It's got Thunderbolt
another simpler option is just go with a laptop. Even a MacBook Pro or a MacBook Air, they don't have the same kind of in and out functionality that the Mac Mini does. But it's a more sort of compact, complete package all at one. If all you need is just something that'll Zoom, that's got a built-in webcam, built-in mic, keyboard and mouse situation. So
sure. Yeah. I will say that I have. I did state that if you're going to be doing external hardware stuff, like the great thing about the Mac Mini is modularity, right? You've got those Thunderbolt ports. You can daisy chain a ton of stuff through there. Multiple monitors, multiple whatever, USB, blah, blah, blah. Also very fast, storage, whatever.
Yeah.
But if you're
we got
only
the 16 gig RAM one, we waited a little longer for that one.
You got the which one?
The 16 gig of RAM.
Oh yeah, get the 16 if you can. Yeah. But the thing I will say is that if you're going to be doing external hardware, especially if you're live streaming, maybe not Zoom necessarily, but I'm including Zoom here, the MacBook Air won't work. I don't know about the M1, but the original ones will not work. Old MacBook Pros do seem to be okay, but best practices here, if you're going to be doing any of this external hardware stuff, you're going to be wanting to use a newer computer system, whether it be PC or Mac, just because it's got to be doing encoding, decoding, streaming, and like it's going to be very processor heavy. You're going to need the extra power.
Yeah, and just another point, when you're dealing with something that I don't know if keeping the producer on a Zoom call while you shoot is mission critical. But definitely if you've got, if you're recording or shooting an important interview and you only have time with the talent for a little while, or if it's something where you're live streaming to an audience, like it's important to go a little overkill on the hardware. Definitely, even if the Wi-Fi works during the test, maybe, try to find that hardwired Ethernet cable. Even if the laptop seems like it could handle it, your old buddy's old laptop you borrowed seems like it could handle it on the test, it might be worth investing in renting something with a little more juice so that for the day of.
The cool thing is going to be that I think this has opened up a lot of people's eyes to the possibility of like, oh, we don't need to have a bunch of people in a room to learn this thing. We can sell tickets to a virtual class and have it be still very polished. So I think that's another thing that could be helpful.
Absolutely, yeah.
The other thing, speaking of like, we keep saying the producer, in New York or whatever, but I know for sure, like shooting certain commercials, I've had 5 or 6 representatives from the client PR team or whatever that all are just hovering. It'd be way nicer if they could all stay home and just watch from afar.
No, and
they have zero input that matters.
And they don't even have to be all that far away. There's no reason that you can't set up, a separate base camp or outside of the studio and set them up with a
In the
similar
hotel, in a conference room with a TV.
hotel and a conference room. Yeah, there's all sorts of once you're get away from being tied to wireless and get out over IP, over the internet. I mean, the possibilities become a lot more. Yeah, I wouldn't say endless, but certainly there's a lot. Yeah.
So we didn't actually record the end of that video, but that pretty much is the end. Like he said, if you need any help, go ahead and hit up Stray Angel at rentals@strayangel.com. They can help you set up the live streaming thing that you need for your setup. So that's it from us. Obviously, I'm cold. I'm gonna take my beanie wearing ass back to the edit bay.